The emergency alarm echoed through the massive space station that served as the Galactic Council headquarters. Elena Rodriguez walked quickly down the long metal corridor, her boots clicking against the floor with each step. The human ambassador had been called to an urgent meeting, and she knew it meant trouble. Elena pushed through the heavy doors of the council chamber. Inside, alien beings from dozens of different worlds sat around a huge circular table. Some looked like giant insects with multiple eyes. Others appeared to be made of flowing liquid metal. A few resembled walking trees with glowing leaves. But today, all of them looked worried. At the head of the table sat Prime Minister Vexthul. He was 8 feet tall with a hard shell covering his body. His forearms moved nervously as he spoke in his clicking language, the translation device in. Elena's ear converted his words into English. "The situation has become desperate," Vexthul announced. "The war between the Zephyrian Empire and the Crystalline Federation has reached a breaking point. Both sides are preparing for a final battle that will destroy everything in this galaxy." Elena took her seat and looked at the holographic display, floating above the table. It showed 2 massive fleets facing each other across a vast stretch of empty space. Each fleet contained thousands of warships, all armed with weapons that could crack planets in half. "How long have they been fighting?" asked Elena, though she already knew the answer. 500 years, replied Vexthul. 5 centuries of death and destruction. Billions of lives lost. Entire star systems turned to ash. And now they want to end it all with one final battle that will leave nothing alive in its wake. The other council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Some made worried sounds in their native languages. Others simply stared at the hologram, with fear in their eyes. Elena studied the display more carefully. The Zephyrian ships were sleek and dark, designed for speed and stealth. The crystalline vessels glowed with inner light and looked like floating cathedrals made of living glass. Both fleets were beautiful in their own way, but Elena knew they carried enough firepower to burn the galaxy to nothing. "What do you want from humanity?" Elena asked directly. She had learned that aliens appreciated human honesty, even when it made them uncomfortable. Vexthul turned all 4 of his compound eyes toward her. "Your species has only been part of our alliance for 50 years. You are still new to galactic politics. But in that short time you have shown us something remarkable." "What's that?" "You think differently than the rest of us. When we see an impossible problem, we accept that it cannot be solved. When humans see an impossible problem, you find a way to make it possible." Elena nodded slowly. She had heard this before from other alien races. Humans had a reputation throughout the galaxy for being unpredictable and creative. Some aliens found this disturbing, others found it useful. "We need that creativity now," continued Vexthul. "Traditional warfare will not stop this conflict. Both empires have fought for so long that they have forgotten why they started fighting. They continue because they do not know how to stop. Every peace treaty has failed. Every negotiation has collapsed. Every attempt at mediation has ended in more violence." The chamber doors opened with a soft hiss. Elena turned to see 3 humans in military uniforms walking toward the table. She recognized them immediately. Captain Jake Morrison led the group. He was a tall man with gray hair and cold blue eyes. Scars on his face told the story of many battles fought and won. Behind him walked Lieutenant Commander Amy Foster, a smaller woman with dark skin and intelligent brown eyes. She carried herself with the confidence of someone who had never met a problem she couldn't solve. The third person was Sergeant Ben Parker, a young man with sandy hair and quick hands. Elena knew that all 3 belonged to something called the Terra Strike Unit, humanity's most elite special forces team. "Ambassador Rodriguez," Morrison said with a slight nod. His voice was calm and steady, the voice of a man who had seen war and learned not to fear it. "Prime Minister Vexthul requested our presence." "Captain Morrison." Vexthul clicked excitedly. "Your reputation precedes you. We have heard stories of your unit's achievements. Impossible missions completed in impossible circumstances." Morrison remained expressionless. "What's the situation?" Foster stepped forward and activated her portable computer. The holographic display above the table changed to show detailed information about both fleets. Numbers and tactical data flowed across the screen like water. The Zephyrians control 12 star systems, Foster explained in a crisp, professional voice. They specialize in psychic warfare and dimensional manipulation. Their ships can phase in and out of normal space, making them nearly impossible to hit with conventional weapons. She touched her computer screen and the display changed again. The Crystalline Federation holds 15 systems. They are beings of living crystal who communicate through harmonic frequencies. Their ships have energy shields that have never been penetrated by any known weapon. Parker studied the tactical information with the focused attention of a predator. Both sides are evenly matched. No wonder they've been fighting for 5 centuries. The problem, said Vexthul, is that they are now preparing to throw everything they have into one massive battle. Winner takes all. Loser gets destroyed completely, and the winner will be so damaged that they will probably collapse anyway, leaving this entire region of space uninhabitable. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. She had seen the aftermath of galactic wars before. Dead systems floating in space. Planets turned to radioactive dust. The silence that came after entire civilizations disappeared forever. What exactly are you asking us to do? Morrison asked. Vexthul's 4 arms gestured toward the hologram. Stop them. End this war. Save this galaxy from destruction. How? We do not know. That is why we called you. Your species has a gift for finding solutions where none exist. You see possibilities that we cannot imagine. Morrison looked at Foster and Parker. The 3 humans exchanged glances that spoke volumes without words. Elena had seen this before. Human military units developed their own silent language, a way of communicating complex ideas with just a look or a gesture. Timeline? Foster asked. The final battle begins in 6 hours, Vexthul replied. After that, it will be too late to stop anything. Morrison was quiet for a long moment. He stared at the holographic display, his mind clearly working through possibilities and calculations. Finally, he looked up at the alien council members. We'll need complete access to all intelligence files on both empires. Ship movements, communication, frequencies, command structures, everything. Done, said Vexthul immediately. We'll also need a fast ship with stealth capabilities and quantum communication equipment. The UHS Nighthawk is docked at Base 7. It's yours. Morrison nodded once. Then we have a chance. Elena leaned forward in her chair. Captain, with respect, how can 12 humans stop a war that has been raging for 500 years? Morrison looked at her with those cold blue eyes. For the first time since entering the chamber, he smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Ambassador, conventional thinking got us into this mess. What we're planning isn't conventional. Foster closed her computer and tucked it under her arm. 5 hours, she said simply. Give us 5 hours and this war ends. The alien council members looked at each other with expressions that ranged from hope to disbelief. Elena felt her heart racing. She had worked with humans long enough to know that when they spoke with that kind of confidence, they usually had a plan that no sane person would consider possible. How? Asked Vexthul. Morrison was already walking toward the door. We're going to give both sides exactly what they want, he said without turning around. Victory. The UHS Nighthawk was not a large ship, but it was fast and quiet. Captain Morrison walked through its narrow corridors toward the briefing room where his team waited. The ship hummed softly as it moved through space, heading toward what many would call certain death. Morrison entered the briefing room to find 11 other humans sitting around a metal table. These were not ordinary soldiers. Each person in this room represented the best that humanity had to offer. They were stronger, faster, and smarter than normal humans. More importantly, they could think in ways that other species found impossible to understand. Listen up, Morrison said as he took his seat at the head of the table. We have 4 hours left before the biggest battle in galactic history begins. Our job is to make sure that battle never happens. Lieutenant Commander Amy, Foster stood up and activated the wall display. A 3-dimensional map appeared showing the positions of both enemy fleets. The Zephyrian ships looked like dark daggers floating in space. The The crystalline vessels glowed like stars, beautiful and deadly. The situation is simple, Foster began. Two empires have been fighting for 500 years. Neither side can win, but neither side can afford to lose. So they've decided to throw everything they have into one final battle. Sergeant Ben Parker leaned back in his chair. Sounds like a problem that solves itself. Let them fight. Winner gets a galaxy full of dead planets. That's not an option, Morrison replied. The Galactic Council wants this war ended, not won. Our mission is to stop the battle before it starts. Corporal Lisa Chang, the team's technology expert, raised her hand. Sir, I've been studying the tactical data. Both empires have their command centers in different dimensions. The Zephyrians use psychic gateways to reach their command ship. The Crystallines have quantum tunnels that lead to their crystal palace. Meaning? Asked Lieutenant Danny White, who specialized in getting into places where he wasn't supposed to be. Meaning both command centers are impossible to reach, Chang replied. The Zephyrians have psychic barriers that can detect hostile thoughts from across the galaxy. The Crystallines have energy shields that have never been broken. Sergeant Kate Johnson smiled. She was the team's expert on how people thought and behaved. That's only a problem if you're thinking like everyone else has been thinking for the past 500 years. Morrison nodded. Exactly. Every previous attempt to end this war has failed because everyone tried to use force. Attack the command centers. Destroy the fleets. Force both sides to surrender. And that doesn't work, because neither side will. Give up, added Sergeant Rick Davis, who could speak and understand dozens of alien languages. They've been fighting too long to quit now. Foster touched a button on her control pad. The display changed to show detailed information about both empires' leaders. Supreme Commander Zith of the Zephyrians, Crystal Prime Luminex of the Crystalline. Federation. Both have been in power for over a century. Both have sworn oaths to fight until their enemies are completely destroyed. So we convince them to break their oaths? Asked Corporal Mike Brown, the team's weapons specialist. No, Morrison said quietly. We convince them that they can keep their oaths and still end the war. The room fell silent. Several team members looked confused. Others began to smile as they started to understand what Morrison was suggesting. Chang leaned forward. You want to make both sides think they're winning? More than that, Foster said. We're going to make both sides believe that they've already won. Johnson nodded enthusiastically. It's brilliant. After 500 years of fighting, both empires are exhausted. Their people are tired of war. Their economies are failing. They want to stop fighting, but they can't admit defeat. So we give them victory instead, Morrison continued. We create a situation where both sides can claim they won the war. White scratched his head. How do we do that when they're getting ready to blow each other up? Davis pulled up a new display showing communication patterns between both fleets. We don't stop the battle by fighting. We stop it by talking. The key, Foster explained, is that both empires have been isolated from each other for so long that they don't really know what the other side is thinking. They make assumptions, based on old information. Chang activated her portable computer. I've been working on something that might help. Quantum signature disruptors. They can change our biological signatures to make us appear as different species entirely. Meaning we can walk right through their security systems, White said with growing excitement. Morrison stood up and walked to the display. Here's the plan. We split into two teams. Alpha team infiltrates the Zephyrian command center. Bravo team gets into the Crystalline Palace. But we don't go in as enemies. What do we go in as? Asked Parker. Mediators, Johnson replied. Representatives of a neutral third party that wants to help end the war. But there is no neutral third party, Brown pointed out. Foster smiled. There is now. We're going to invent one. The plan was audacious beyond belief. Chang had spent weeks creating false identities for a fictional alien species that existed only in computer files. According to these files, the Neutral Mediation Collective was a group of peaceful beings who specialized in ending conflicts between warring civilizations. The beauty of this, Johnson explained, is that both empires are secretly desperate for a way out. They've been fighting for so long that they've forgotten why they started. They continue because they don't know how to stop without losing face. Davis activated the translation programs he had been working on. I've mastered both species' communication methods. The Zephyrians use psychic resonance combined with clicking sounds. The crystallines communicate through harmonic frequencies that sound like music. The timing has to be perfect, Morrison warned. Both teams have to reach their targets at exactly the same moment. If one empire discovers what we're doing before the other, the whole plan fails. Chang showed them the quantum communication devices she had prepared. These will keep us connected even across dimensional barriers. We'll be able to coordinate our actions in real time. White studied the infiltration routes on the display. Getting in won't be the hard part. The hard part will be convincing two empire leaders who have been fighting for centuries to suddenly trust complete strangers. That's where human psychology comes in, Johnson said. We're not going to ask them to trust us. We're going to give them information they want to hear. Morrison looked around the table at his team. These 11 people were about to attempt something that every military strategist in the galaxy would call impossible. They were going to end a 500-year war through deception, manipulation, and pure human cleverness. Remember, Morrison said, we're not here to fight anyone. We're here to offer both sides something they want more than victory. What's that? Asked Brown. Survival with honor, Foster replied. A way to end the war without admitting they lost. Parker stood up and checked his equipment. When do we start? Morrison looked at the chronometer on the wall. Right now. Chang, activate the quantum disruptors. White, prepare the infiltration gear. Johnson, review the psychological profiles one more time. The team moved with practiced efficiency. Within minutes, they had transformed from human soldiers into members of the fictional Neutral Mediation Collective. Chang's technology made their life signs appear alien. Davis's translation programs changed their voices. White's camouflage systems made their equipment look like diplomatic tools rather than military gear. Alpha Team, you're with me, Morrison announced. We're going after the Zephyrians. Bravo Team, Foster has command. You get the crystallines. As both teams prepared to leave the Nighthawk, Johnson made one final observation. You know, if this works, we'll have ended the longest war in galactic history without firing a single shot. Morrison smiled grimly. And if it doesn't work, we'll be the first humans to start an intergalactic incident that gets everyone killed. The teams departed in opposite directions, heading toward dimensional gateways that led to the most heavily defended locations in the galaxy. Behind them, two massive fleets continued their approach toward the battle that would determine the fate of countless worlds. The clock was ticking. In less than 4 hours, the final battle would begin unless 12 humans could convince two ancient enemies that peace was more valuable than victory. The first hour of the mission began with both teams moving toward their impossible targets. Captain Morrison led Alpha Team through the dark void of space toward the Zephyrian dimensional gateway. The gateway looked like a spinning ring of purple, energy that hurt to look at directly. Behind Morrison, Sergeant Parker and Corporal Chang made final adjustments to their disguise equipment. The quantum signature disruptors hummed quietly, changing their human life signs into something completely alien. To any scanner, they would appear to be members of the peaceful Neutral Mediation Collective. Remember, Morrison whispered into his communication device, we are not soldiers today. We are diplomats from a species that has never fought a war. We speak softly and offer hope, not threats. Several light years away, Lieutenant Commander Foster approached the crystalline quantum tunnel with her team. The tunnel entrance glowed like a rainbow made of solid light. Beautiful music seemed to flow from it, the natural communication method of the crystal beings. Sergeant Johnson adjusted her harmonic translator one more time. The crystallines think in terms of musical harmony. Everything they say sounds like singing. Try to keep your voices calm and melodic. Easier said than done when we're about to walk into the most dangerous place in the galaxy, muttered Corporal Brown under his breath. Morrison's team reached the Zephyrian checkpoint first. 3 massive creatures with tentacles for arms and eyes like black holes stared at their small ship. These were psychic guards, beings that could read thoughts and emotions from incredible distances. "This is it," Chang whispered. "If the disruptors don't work, they'll know we're human in about 3 seconds." Morrison activated the communication system. When he spoke, the translator made his voice sound like the clicking and buzzing of the fictional mediation species. "Greetings, guardians of the Zephyrian Empire. We are representatives of the neutral Mediation Collective. We come seeking audience with Supreme Commander Zith." The psychic guards moved closer to their ship. Morrison could feel something strange in his mind, like cold fingers touching his thoughts. The guards were trying to read his intentions, searching for any sign of hostility or deception. For a terrifying moment, nothing happened. Then one of the guards spoke in a voice that sounded like grinding metal. "You are unexpected. The Collective has not contacted us in many cycles. The war has reached a critical point," Morrison replied, forcing his voice to remain calm. "We bring information that Supreme Commander Zith must hear before the final battle begins." Meanwhile, Foster's team passed through layers of crystal formations that scanned them with beams of colored light. The crystalline security system was beautiful, but deadly. One wrong move would trigger defenses that could turn them into space, dust in seconds. White had studied the crystal patterns for weeks. "Stay in formation," he whispered. "Move with the rhythm of their music. Think of it as a dance, not an infiltration." The crystalline guards were tall beings that looked like walking sculptures made of living gems. They communicated by changing the colors of their bodies and producing sounds like a heavenly choir. Johnson stepped forward and spoke in the musical language she had learned. "Greetings, children of light. We are the Neutral Mediation Collective. We seek harmony with Crystal Prime Luminex." One of the crystal guards pulsed with blue light. "Your frequency is unfamiliar, yet you sing the old songs of peace. Why do you come now, when war music fills the void?" "Because," Foster replied through the translator, "we have learned something that Crystal Prime Luminex must know. Something about your ancient enemy that could end this conflict forever." Both teams were playing a dangerous game. They had to seem important enough to warrant immediate attention from the Empire leaders, but not so important that they would be subjected to intensive security checks. Morrison felt the psychic pressure increase as more Zephyrian guards surrounded their ship. "We carry information about the Crystalline Federation's final battle plans," he said. "Information that could guarantee Zephyrian victory." The guards' tentacles writhed with excitement. After 500 years of war, any intelligence about the enemy was precious beyond measure. Chang monitored the quantum communication link with Foster's team. Both groups were walking the same tightrope, offering both empires the same basics: promise, secret information about their enemy that would ensure victory. Clever, Chang thought to herself. We're not lying to them. We do have information about their enemies. We just haven't mentioned that we're also giving the same information to both sides. The Zephyrian guards made their decision. The dimensional gateway expanded, creating a tunnel of swirling energy. "You may pass," the lead guard announced. "But know that Supreme Commander Zith does not tolerate deception. If you bring false hope, you will not leave this dimension alive." Morrison's team flew their ship into the gateway. The sensation was like being turned inside out while falling through a rainbow. When it ended, they found themselves in a place that existed outside normal space and time. The Zephyrian Command Center was a massive structure that seemed to be built from crystallized thoughts. Dark towers twisted upward into a sky that showed the swirling colors of pure psychic energy. Everywhere, alien beings with tentacles and multiple eyes moved with purpose, preparing for the final battle. At the same time, Foster's team emerged from the quantum tunnel into the crystalline palace. This place was the opposite of the Zephyrian Command Center. Everything was made of living crystal that sang with inner light. The walls, floors, and ceiling pulsed with colors that matched the emotions of their inhabitants. Davis marveled at the beauty around them. "It's like being inside a living jewel," he whispered. But there was no time for sightseeing. Both teams had to reach the Empire leaders quickly. Every minute that passed brought the final battle closer. Morrison was escorted by floating psychic beings toward the center of the command structure. There, on a throne made of solidified darkness, sat Supreme Commander Zith. The Zephyrian leader was enormous, with skin like black metal and eyes that glowed with purple fire. Tentacles as thick as tree trunks grew from his shoulders, each one crackling with psychic energy. "So," Zith said in a voice like thunder, "the Neutral Mediation Collective finally shows interest in our war. What information do you bring that is worth interrupting my preparations for victory?" Foster found herself in a chamber of singing crystal, standing before Crystal Prime Luminex. The crystalline leader was a being of pure light contained within, a form of living diamond. When she spoke, her voice was like a symphony of bells. "Peaceful ones," Luminex sang, "you come at the moment of our greatest triumph. What harmony do you offer that we have not already considered?" Both teams now faced the moment of truth. They had successfully infiltrated the most secure locations in the galaxy. They had convinced two Empire leaders to meet with them. Now came the hard part. They had to convince these ancient enemies to consider peace without revealing their true purpose. Johnson activated her psychological analysis programs. Both leaders showed signs of war weariness despite their confident words. After 5 centuries of conflict, even the most dedicated warriors grew tired. Morrison straightened his shoulders and prepared to deliver the performance of his life. "Supreme Commander, our long observation of this conflict has revealed something that your enemy does not know you know." At the same moment, Foster began her own carefully crafted deception. "Crystal Prime, we have discovered a weakness in your enemy's plans, a weakness that could end this war without the need for destructive battle." Chang monitored both conversations through the quantum link. The beauty of their plan was becoming clear. Each leader would hear exactly what they wanted to hear. That victory was possible without the massive losses that a direct battle would cause. "Tell me," Zith demanded, his psychic energy filling the chamber with the smell of ozone. "Sing to us," Luminex requested, her crystal form pulsing with curious light. Parker and White exchanged glances. This was the moment when their mission would either succeed brilliantly or fail catastrophically. Everything depended on convincing two beings who had spent centuries perfecting the art of war to consider the possibility of peace. The clock continued to tick toward the final battle. But for the first time in 500 years, the Empire leaders were about to hear something they had never heard before: that there might be a way to win without fighting. Hour 2 began with Captain Morrison standing before the most dangerous being in the Zephyrian Empire. Supreme Commander Zith's psychic energy filled the dark chamber like electricity before a storm. His massive tentacles moved slowly as he studied, the disguised human with eyes that burned like purple stars. "Speak," Zith commanded. "What do you know of my enemies that I do not?" Morrison felt the alien leader's mind pressing against his thoughts, searching for deception. The quantum disruptor held firm, hiding his true nature behind layers of false signals. He took a deep breath and began the most important performance of his life. "Supreme Commander, your enemy believes they have discovered your greatest weakness," Morrison said in the clicking language of his fictional species. "They think you cannot strike at their home dimension because your psychic powers are useless against crystal beings." Zith's tentacles stopped moving. His burning eyes focused on Morrison with intense interest. "Continue." "But we have observed something they have not," Morrison continued. "The Crystalline Federation has been preparing for 500 years to defend against psychic attacks. They have spent so much energy on these defenses that they have created a new weakness." Miles away in another dimension, Lieutenant Commander Foster stood in the singing Crystal Palace before Crystal Prime Luminex. The crystalline leader's body pulsed with colors that matched the musical tones of her voice. "Tell us your harmony, peaceful ones," Luminex sang. "What discord have you found in our enemy's song?" Foster activated her harmonic translator and replied, in the musical language of the crystal beings. "Crystal Prime, your enemy believes they understand your nature. They think you are beings of pure energy who cannot be harmed by physical weapons." The crystal chamber filled with interested chimes as Luminex's form brightened. "They are correct. Physical matter cannot touch our essence. But, Foster continued carefully, they have made a mistake in their understanding. They believe your crystal forms are just containers for your energy. They do not realize that your crystals are actually amplifiers. Back in the Zephyrian Command Center, Morrison was weaving his web of psychological manipulation. The crystallines have spent centuries making their defenses stronger against psychic attacks. But in doing so, they have made their crystal amplifiers more sensitive to the exact type of energy you produce. Zith leaned forward on his throne of darkness. Explain. Their defenses work by absorbing psychic energy and redirecting it harmlessly away from their bodies, Morrison said. But if that energy is precisely tuned to match their crystal frequency, it will overload their amplifiers instead of being redirected. Sergeant Parker monitored the conversation from his position near the chamber entrance. Through the quantum link, he could hear Foster giving a similar explanation to the crystal leader. Both teams were telling the same basic lie, that each empire's greatest strength could be turned into a weakness by someone who understood the science involved. In the Crystal Palace, Foster continued her deception. Your crystal amplifiers make you incredibly powerful, Crystal Prime. But your enemy has learned that these amplifiers have a resonance frequency. If they can match that frequency exactly, they can cause feedback that will disrupt your connection to your crystal forms. Luminex's musical voice took on a concerned tone. This is troubling information. How do they plan to discover our resonance frequency? Foster smiled inwardly. The crystal leader was taking the bait. They believe they have already discovered it. They plan to use it in the final battle to disable your entire fleet at once. Johnson worked frantically at her portable computer, monitoring the psychological responses of both Empire leaders. Her reading showed exactly what she had hoped. Both Zith and Luminex were feeling a mixture of fear and excitement. Fear that their enemy had found a way to defeat them, and excitement that they now had advance warning. Morrison pressed his advantage with the Zephyrian commander. But here is what they do not know, Supreme Commander. We have analyzed their attack plan and we have found a way to turn their weapon against them. Zith's psychic energy crackled with anticipation. Tell me, if you pretend to be vulnerable to their attack, you can lure them into using their frequency weapon. But at the moment they activate it, you can reverse the polarity of your psychic field. Instead of disrupting your powers, their weapon will amplify them beyond anything you have ever achieved. The alien commander's tentacles writhed with excitement. After 5 centuries of stalemate, the possibility of complete victory was intoxicating. Foster delivered her corresponding lie to Crystal Prime Luminex. The Zephyrians plan to overload your amplifiers with precisely tuned psychic energy, but we have discovered that their psychic frequency can be reflected back at them using your crystal network. How? Luminex asked, her crystal form pulsing with eager light. If you configure your crystals to act as mirrors instead of amplifiers, you can bounce their psychic attack back at them with double the power. Their own weapon will destroy their minds while leaving you completely unharmed. Chang monitored both conversations through the quantum communication link. The beauty of the human plan was becoming clear. Both Empire leaders now believed they had a secret weapon that would guarantee victory. More importantly, both weapons required the same thing: a face-to-face meeting. Morrison delivered the crucial part of his proposal. But this technique will only work if you can get close enough to your enemy to read their exact psychic frequency. You need to be within the same dimensional space when they activate their weapon. Zith considered this carefully. His burning eyes studied Morrison for a long moment. You suggest I meet with Crystal Prime Luminex directly? Not a battle meeting, Morrison said quickly. A negotiation meeting. Let them think they are about to use their secret weapon to force your surrender. When they activate it, you will instead achieve total victory. In the Crystal Palace, Foster made the same suggestion to Luminex. You must arrange a meeting with Supreme Commander Zith. Let him think he is about to force your surrender with his psychic weapon. When he attacks, your crystal mirrors will destroy him instead. Davis watched both Empire leaders carefully. The psychological manipulation was working perfectly. Both Zith and Luminex believed they were about to trick their enemy into a trap. Neither realized they were being tricked into the same trap. Where would such a meeting take place? Zith asked, suspiciously. I cannot enter normal space without weakening my psychic powers. She cannot leave her crystal dimension without losing her connection to the harmonic network. Morrison had prepared for this question. There is a neutral location, a pocket dimension, that exists between your realm and hers. We discovered it during our research. Neither of your weapons will work there, which means both of you will believe the other is defenseless. Foster gave Luminex the same information. The pocket dimension will convince Supreme Commander Zith that his psychic powers are useless there. He will agree to the meeting, because he believes you will also be powerless without your crystal amplifiers. Both Empire leaders spent several minutes considering the proposal. Chang used the time to prepare the final phase of the human plan. The pocket dimension they had described actually existed, but it wasn't what either leader expected. Very well, Zith finally declared. Arrange this meeting. But if you are deceiving me, your species will pay the price for eternity. Luminex reached the same decision. We will sing harmony with your proposal, peaceful ones. But if this is discord, disguised as music, the consequences will be beyond measure. Morrison and Foster exchanged a silent communication through the quantum link. Phase 1 of their mission was complete. Both Empire leaders had agreed to a face-to-face meeting, each believing they were about to spring a deadly trap on their enemy. The meeting will take place in exactly 2 hours, Morrison told Zith. That will give you time to prepare your psychic frequency weapon. Foster gave Luminex the same timeline. 2 hours will allow you to configure your crystal mirrors properly. Both teams prepared to leave their respective command centers. Johnson made a final observation. You know what the really clever part is? We haven't actually lied to either of them. They really will get exactly what we promised. Parker looked confused. How do you figure that? We promised both of them victory, Johnson explained with a smile. And they're both going to get it, just not the kind of victory they're expecting. White checked his equipment as they prepared for the final phase. And if this doesn't work? Morrison's voice came through the comm system as Alpha Team headed back toward their ship. Then we'll have created the first three-way war in Galactic history, us against everybody. Foster's team moved through the crystal passages toward their exit point. In less than 2 hours, 2 Empire leaders who had fought for 5 centuries would meet face-to-face for the first time. They would each expect to destroy the other. Instead, they would discover something that no one in the galaxy expected. That peace was more valuable than victory. The final phase of the mission was about to begin. The final hour arrived with both alien fleets moving toward what they believed would be the greatest battle in galactic history. But Supreme Commander Zith and Crystal Prime Luminex were no longer with their fleets. Instead, both leaders traveled toward a small pocket dimension that existed between normal space and the quantum realm. Captain Morrison watched from the bridge of the UHS Nighthawk as 2 separate ships approached the dimensional gateway. One ship was dark and sleek, crackling with psychic energy. The other glowed like a star, singing with crystal harmonics. Neither leader knew that the other was coming to the same meeting. Final equipment check, Morrison ordered his team. Chang, are the recording devices ready? Corporal Chang nodded as she adjusted her instruments. Every word they speak will be transmitted live to both fleets and the Galactic Council. When this is over, everyone will know exactly what happened here. Lieutenant Commander Foster monitored the approach of both ships. They're both right on schedule. Zith thinks he's about to force Luminex to surrender using his secret psychic weapon. Luminex thinks she's about to destroy Zith with her crystal mirrors. Sergeant Johnson smiled as she watched the psychological readings from both leaders. The beautiful thing is, they're both excited about this meeting. After 500 years of war, they each think they're about to achieve total victory. The pocket dimension that Chang had discovered was a strange place. It existed in the space between spaces, where the normal laws of physics worked differently. Most importantly, it was a place where both psychic powers and crystal amplifiers would be completely useless. Morrison activated the communication system. Both leaders are entering the dimensional gateway now. Remember, we don't reveal ourselves until they've had time to realize their weapons don't work. The meeting chamber was a simple room with white walls and a single table in the center. There were 2 chairs, one on each side of the table. Morrison's team had built this place over the past few weeks, knowing that eventually they would need a neutral location for exactly this kind of meeting. Supreme Commander Zith materialized first. The massive Zephyrian leader looked around the chamber with suspicion. His tentacles writhed as he tried to use his psychic powers to scan for threats. Nothing happened. In this dimension, his mental abilities were as useless as ordinary thoughts. What trickery is this? Zith growled, his voice echoing off the walls. A moment later, Crystal Prime Luminex appeared in a flash of rainbow light. The crystalline leader immediately tried to connect with her harmonic network. The connection failed. Her crystal form flickered and dimmed as she realized her amplifiers weren't working. "Where is the song of my people?" Luminex asked in confusion. "I cannot hear the crystal harmony." Both leaders stared at each other across the small chamber. For 500 years they had been mortal enemies. They had never met face to face. They had never spoken directly to each other. All their communication had been through threats and battle reports. Zith was the first to speak. "So, Crystal Prime, it seems we are both powerless here." Luminex's form pulsed with dim colors. "Indeed, Supreme Commander. Our weapons are useless in this place." Morrison activated the chamber's communication system from his hidden location. When he spoke, his voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. That was the point. Both alien leaders spun around, searching for the source of the voice. "Who speaks?" Zith demanded. "Show yourself." Foster stepped out of a concealed doorway, followed by Morrison and the rest of the human team. They were no longer disguised as members of the fictional Neutral Mediation Collective. They wore simple human military uniforms with no weapons. "We are humans," Morrison said simply, "and we have something to tell you both." Luminex's crystal form flared with anger. "Deception! You are not the peaceful mediators who contacted us." Zith's tentacles lashed in fury. "Trickery! You made us believe our enemies had secret weapons." "We never lied to you," Foster replied calmly. "We told you that your enemy had discovered a way to defeat you. We just didn't mention that the way they discovered it was through us." Chang activated the holographic display system. Images appeared in the air above the table, showing both alien fleets still moving toward their battle positions. "Your fleets are still preparing to fight. They don't know you're here." Johnson stepped forward with her psychological analysis equipment. "Supreme Commander Zeth, Crystal Prime Luminex, I want to show you something. These are readings of your emotional states for the past 500 years. The holographic display changed to show complex charts and graphs. Both alien leaders stared at the information with growing amazement. "According to our analysis," Johnson continued, "both of your species have been suffering from severe war fatigue for over a century. Your people are tired. Your economies are failing. Your birth rates have dropped. Your cultures are dying." Davis activated his translation programs and began speaking in both alien languages simultaneously. "You have been fighting for so long that you have forgotten why you started fighting. Either of your species can remember what the original conflict was about." Zith's burning eyes dimmed slightly. That cannot be correct." Luminex's musical voice became softer. "Our histories speak of great injustices committed by the other side. Your histories were written by beings who have been dead for 4 centuries, Morrison said gently. "We have access to the original records. The war began because of a trade dispute over mining rights in a solar system that no longer exists." Parker activated another display showing the economic cost of the war. "Both of your empires are spending 90% of your resources on military expenses. Your people are living in poverty while you build bigger and better weapons. But we cannot stop fighting," Zith protested. "To stop would mean admitting defeat. Our honor demands victory." "Your honor demands the survival of your people," Foster replied. "And right now your people are dying slowly while you chase a victory. That will never come." White showed them images of both fleets preparing for battle. "If you fight this final battle, the winner will control a galaxy full of dead worlds. There won't be enough survivors on either side to celebrate the victory. Chang brought up a new set of data. But here's what we discovered during our research. Both of your species have technology that the other needs. The Zephyrians have developed medical techniques that could extend crystalline lifespans by thousands of years. The crystallines have energy systems that could power Zephyrian psychic amplifiers more efficiently than anything currently available. Johnson smiled as she delivered the crucial information. In other words, you're more valuable to each other as allies than as enemies. Both alien leaders stared at the data for a long time. The chamber fell silent except for the soft humming of the display equipment. Finally, Luminex spoke in a voice like distant music. You are saying that we could both achieve more through cooperation than through conquest. Exactly, Morrison replied. The war has cost both sides more than victory could ever be worth. Zith's tentacles moved slowly as he processed the information. But how can we stop fighting without losing face? Our people expect victory. You give them something better than victory, Foster said. You give them peace with honor. Brown activated the final display, showing a proposed peace treaty that the human team had spent months preparing. This document gives both sides exactly what they need. The Zephyrians get recognition as the superior military force. The crystallines get acknowledgement as the more advanced civilization. Both sides can claim they won the war. Davis translated the treaty into both alien languages. More importantly, it establishes trade agreements, technology exchanges, and joint defense pacts. Both empires will be stronger together than they ever were apart. Luminex studied the treaty carefully. This would mean admitting that our enemy has valuable qualities. This would mean recognizing that your former enemy could become your greatest ally, Johnson corrected. Zith read through the military provisions. Our fleets would serve together instead of fighting each other? Think about it, Morrison said. For 500 years, you've been the only forces in the galaxy capable of matching each other. Together, you would be unbeatable. Chang transmitted a signal to both alien fleets. Your people are watching this meeting. They can see that their leaders are talking instead of fighting. They can see the evidence we've presented. They know that peace is possible. The two alien leaders looked at each other across the table. For the first time in 5 centuries, they saw each other not as monsters to be destroyed, but as intelligent beings who had been trapped in the same impossible situation. If we sign this treaty, Zith said slowly, our war ends immediately. Your war ended the moment you both agreed to this meeting, Foster replied. Signing the treaty just makes it official. Luminex's crystal form brightened. Our people will finally be free to pursue art and science instead of weapons and warfare. Morrison placed 2 styluses on the table. The choice is yours. You can return to your fleets and fight the battle that will destroy you both, or you can end this war and build something better. Both leaders reached for the styluses at the same time. As they signed the peace treaty, Chang transmitted the ceremony live to every ship in both fleets.